So last winter, we did 10 classes in Queen's University Open Learning about this book as a book club, because I read it back then and I loved it. And I'm sure my students would actually enjoy this so much. And they enjoyed it so much. I mean, it was a group of over 20 people, 10 weeks playing with your book, and we'll talk, already, we'll talk about that. Everybody loved the book and knew so much, Giovanni, that at some point, just, whenever you try to do something, I just sent an email to Chiara Avanzato, who's the director of the Italian Institute of Culture in Edinburgh. And I just said, Chiara, do you happen maybe to have Giovanni Montanaro's contacts? Just to invite him if it's possible, but, and I was like already forgetting about that. And the day after, she was like, well, no, but I can find them. And indeed, I think 2 months after or something like that, we are here. So you're very, very, very welcome. How great to have you here.
It was on Instagram, it wasn't so complicated. Take 2 months to contact me.
Now you're spoiling the whole story, yeah. Anyway, we are here, which is great. And so Giovanni was born in Venice in 1983. Could I say that?
Yeah, you said it.
So,
sign anything before, but
yeah. So a writer, and as you've already found out, a solicitor, a lawyer as well. He does international law. He's published quite a few books. He's a very successful, very well-known author in Italy. And I read in 2019 The Last Lessons, which is this one. I know that some of you then have bought other books following the Libraio. Le ultime lezioni, The Last Lessons, and then 2017, Guardami negli occhi, Look into my eyes. 2014, Tommaso sa le stelle, Tommaso knows the stars, and 2012, this one, which I can't say anything about because I will spoil the story, but it's Tutti i colori del mondo, all the colors of the world. That was mind-blowing for me. So here we are, 2020. The Bookseller of Venice was published. It's a story about Venice. It's a story about Vittorio, who's this independent bookseller. It's the story of the Moby Dick, an independent bookshop. It's a story of it's a love story as well. Yeah. Vittorio and Sofia. It's a story of love towards books. It's a story of love towards Venice, I would say. And it talks about this, which happens in 2019. So the acqua alta, high water, flooding, as we want to call it, reached 187 centimeters, I think. So it's over 6 feet. And so that was the highest in more than 50 years, I think, at the time. So it did a lot of damage. And for me, teaching is about civic engagement. It is about being engaged both locally and internationally with Italy. So I thought about this course also about the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations, number 13, which is about climate change and the impact it has. So we start with the questions now, Giovanni, and basically they're not my questions.
I know.
They come from the participants. People who attended the class, the very last lesson, we said, well, what questions would you ask Giovanni if you could? And so I collected all of them, and I'm going to ask them all. You see different sets of questions there. One is really about Venice and the acqua alta and the climate change. So let's start with that. If you agree, acqua alta, is it a daily concern for the Venetians, or have they learned to coexist with it? What do Venetians think about climate change? And also, I would ask the question about Mose. Mose is, the barriers basically at the inlets, at the entrances of the lagoon that we now have to sort of stop the water, l'acqua to become too alta. In a way, does it work? or not.
So it's just one question or three questions. So thank you very
One big
much.
question.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I really want to especially thank Federica and also Dr. for bringing us everywhere in Belfast. So now I'm very happy to talk about. I'm very happy to talk about Venice much more than, especially talking about this book also because this book was really born very quickly based on the event that occurred in Venice in November 2019. So at the end of the day, Federica told that I have written several books, but at the end of the day, I think that this is the only one that I have lived before in any way writing. Even if it talks about Bookseller for Vittorio and story with Sofia and blah blah blah. At the end of the day, I was there, and even if you can see already a lot of things from these photos, in any case, we also have to think that the big event occurred during the night, and it was incredibly windy, and it was incredibly cold, and the water was incredibly violent that night, and that's the reason why I would say that we faced the climate change, because even if the aqua alta is something strictly related to Venice, and I will come back to this topic, that night was something totally different, also from our experience, because the water was very high, but also because the water came in a way that has never happened before. So it was very quick in increasing, and the reason of the disaster was that the water was unforeseen. So you have to think that Venice and the water is the relationship for Venice. So Venice and the water has a strong connection. Venice as a water has a strong, we can say, history of love, because Venice depends on the water, but also Venice and the water are all time struggling, and the seas are increasing every day. So we are discussing about something, but in 50 years we will discuss about something else. And 100 years ago, another challenge was related to Venice and the water. So Venice, you can perceive Venice as something that has been made by human beings, like the most beautiful creation of human beings ever made. But at the end of the day, if you forget that Venice is something in relation with nature, and especially water, you don't understand what Venice is. So Venice is a constant transformation. Even if it seems that Venice is like unique, or Venice is a city from the past, or something that has been, you can say, created once forever, at the end of the day, Venice is changing every day. So it will change again, and it has changed a lot. But something in the relationship with the water has changed dramatically, and in 2019 we faced this kind of event, which was really incredible. And so I was there. I lived on the second floor, so I didn't have any particular problem. But in arriving at home, it was late. I was outside Venice. But I need to go to my parents' house to try to help them, because for the first time ever, the water started to enter in the house. Something suddenly changed, so the water entered, but then went out quite quickly. But the water came back for several days. If you have read the book, you know. So it was something that it seems, that the city was going to end. The city was going to finish. But the first time we had this different idea of Aqua Alta. Aqua Alta is all time a problem. It's something that we felt like a potential enormous disaster, but at the end of the day was something that was impacting some days of the year. Somehow also Aqua Alta is also romantic, is also something that I don't know, gives you some emotions, because feeling that something can finish is in any case also something very powerful to a human being, because it teaches you that you are not forever. It teaches you that something can happen. But that day was incredible. It was like we need to survive, and the water can be also against us. So I'm quite interested in understanding why the water is, we can say, acting against us. But at the end of the day, it was not the question at the moment. The question was, what can we do to survive? And we can say that those days were very full of energy. So that's not to talk about Belfast, but I felt today a strong energy in this city. Okay, and if you go to Venice, sometimes you don't feel which kind of energy has Venice. And paradoxically, those days was the day that I really felt how energetic is Venice. Why? Because at the end of the day, and I think that this is the most important part of the book, at the end of the day, the city reacted. So for the first time, probably, I have ever seen, people was helping each other. People was going downstairs, asking other people if they need something. A lot of people came from the neighborhoods, from outside, from all over the world, to, I don't know, to fix an electrical system which was damaged by the water, or to try to contribute in giving, I don't know, blankets or whatever that has. And so at the end of the day, something was really beautiful. And the reason why I have decided to write down this book, I was very inspired by the energy that I perceived. But I write a lot for several newspapers in Italy, and also I had the perception that not being in Venice, you don't have the exact reality of what was happening really. So you had the possibility to see the disaster, you had the possibility to see the flood, but you didn't perceive exactly what was going on about energy, about people that in an emergency situation were different. Immediately after this disaster, something has changed, because the Mose that you told about, which was an awful Italian story of very long project, a lot of bribery, a lot of corruption, something not to be, unfortunately, not to be proud of. But at the end of the day, just because this disaster happened, they speed up the we can say the startup of the Mose, and so today we don't have the problem of aqua because the Mose works. We had different problems because the Mose closes the lagoon, as already Federica told you, and in closing the lagoon, there is an impact on commercial ships or whatever. So there's an economical problem also because, okay, the seas are increasing. So at the end of the day, the Mose is closing every day, more days per year. So probably the Mose will not be effective in 50 years, and there's a new challenge for Venice. And it's you know, it's something. So from one side, Venice has an enormous. So I'm here talking about Venice, okay, and the reason why I'm here, yes, I'm a writer basically, but at the end of the day, you are very interested in Venice. So we can say I'm here much more because I'm talking about, and everybody in the world seems interested in Venice, which for us it's incredible. But I understand these points because from one side, Venice has became, we can say, the capital city of beauty, but also of the feeling of being fragile, of being menaced by the nature, the capital city of what we risk to lose. But on the other hand, sometimes you feel that Venice is really something that we are defending. And so my idea is sometimes that if the sea will increase a lot, probably a lot of city will be flooded, but not Venice, because everybody in the world wants Venice to be safe. And this is very beautiful for us to know. I don't understand if I answered. Let me check the answer. What do the cities the climate change? As everybody, they are interesting. Sometimes they feel without any power to do anything, and but we are facing it really every day in the front line.
See, I love the fact, Giovanni, that you talked about the courage of the residents, but mainly the spirit, the atmosphere that you could breathe in really at the time. which was all about solidarity, which was all about mutual help and support in those, you know, very challenging days, all about that kind of generosity. So the students wrote some other questions, now Venice, but from the perspective of the characters of the book. So a classic question, I suppose. So are the characters, you know, in the book based on people you actually know in Venice, and especially La Signora Rosalba seemed to be a very popular character. And also somebody asked, well, somebody said, I would like to know what happens between Vittorio and Sofia. So do you plan to write the sequel, really, like the continuation of this novel?
If you invite me back in Belfast, let's go through the story. So, you know the story, so I don't have to go through the story, but I want to share some feeling and some thoughts. So, I have already explained to you what happened. So at the end of the day, I was there, not the hero, so nothing so relevant happened at the end of the day. Just one person died. So one old man in Pellestrina in Lido. So it was not such a huge tragedy that you have, you know, if you face probably more important tragedy, you need some silence also to understand what happened and to take your time. At the end of the day, it was my feeling was to immediately had the need to tell something different, which was mainly related to solidarity or to the fact that we are facing an incredible natural event, which is something that the literature sometimes is a little bit scared of telling. Okay, I think that we can discuss about that, but some of the most important things that has been happening in Italy in the last 30 to 40 years are mainly related to natural disasters. Earthquakes, flood. So if we see the history of my country in the last 40 years, we have relevant political events, we have a lot of problems with criminality, as you may know. But something that has really impacted a lot of families everywhere is related to natural events. And usually literature is not so interested in talking about that. And so it seemed to me very uncommon because it's something that is much more important of, we can say, which part is in of the government, which is now is not so good in Italy, but at the end of the day, everybody can have his idea, but an earthquake is something different. So I was there during this natural event, and I had the idea to try to tell something about this event, to create a novel, to create a fiction. And immediately my idea came to the books. Why? Because at the end of the day, I think also Pazzi told before about that. So this book is original and mainly based for doing charity. So I wanted to support the booksellers in Venice. And at the end of the day, so the story is quite long and I will tell you if you want, but so we wanted to focus on booksellers because booksellers lost a lot of books based on the water. So they need some economical support. So originally I wanted to make this book very quick, so I wrote it in 1 month. And then I proposed to Feltrinelli to publish it as an ebook, just I don't know, €1. I'm quite connected with Corriere della Sera, which is it's like a Titanic song for me. Thank you very much. I was saying something very. The music was perfect, and so I was trying to do this, and then the final outcome was different. But at the end of the day, it was natural to me to tell about the bookseller because I'm very close to a lot of booksellers, and because booksellers at the time faced a huge problem because the water invaded all the bookshops, and so a lot of books had to be destroyed. So this is the basic approach, because the water, the flood impacted most of all the shops, because usually people live not on the first floor in Venice, or in any case. But the main point, which I think is much more important, is that yes, I knew a lot of booksellers, most of the things, and the episodes are narrated in the book are something that I have heard or I have seen or whatever. But the books is like a symbol. So it's very impacting the relationship between water and the books. So at the end of the day, if the water destroy a book, or if the water, you can say, heats a book, a bookseller cannot sell the book. Even if a lot of people at the end of the day saw these booksellers going to throw out the books and stop them and pay them, and which is an episode of the book. But a book has a relation very different than other goods with the water. Because if you have food, basically the salty water of the lagoon destroys the food. If you have clothes, you can try to wash them. Depends on the type of leather. If you have plastic, the plastic does not care about water, salty or not water. Doesn't happen anything. If you have, I don't know, a clock, it's something that can ruin the mechanism, but you can repair it. The books are different. And before 2019, the most important Acqualta was in 1966. I wasn't in this world at the time, but my mother was, and so I'm very interested in knowing everything about this big flood of 1966. It's something that we have a lot of history here in Belfast. Our history is mainly related on water, or Second World War, or First World War, or whatever. And my mother, when I was a kid, told me that the really awful thing about the Acqualta of 1966 was the fact that she lost Pinocchio, which was her book, her favorite book, and she wasn't able to save it. And I think that, okay, in our family we love book, and it is clear. But at the end of the day, I understood that you can have also your favorite jacket, and you are going to lose it with the water. But the books are different, because if you lose a book in the water, it's something that you feel that you are losing something of you. I don't know why. Nobody knows why the books are so powerful, no? At the end of the day, it's like the most important thing maybe in life, love, and a lot of other important things. So what happened? If a book gets wet, it's your choice to save it or not. Because you can somehow save it. And so this thing is like just one old man in Palestrina died, but at the end of the day, a lot of books had the opportunity to be saved or not. And this opened to me an incredible, we can say, series of circumstances of what happened with books that day. And the most amazing thing about books is like, there are booksellers, there are personal books of everybody. There are also public libraries. And usually in Venice, the public libraries has a lot of books on the ground floor, because the books are very heavy. So, ancient palaces or whatever, you cannot store all the books. So I don't know, we are on the second floor and there are a lot of books there. So I don't want to say anything. I'm Italian, so. But at the end of the day, so the books risk to be hit by the water. So at the end of the day, a lot of books, also very, very special books, very prestigious books of the 17th century, of the 18th century, got wet with the Acqua Alta 2019. And there is a strange procedure that costs like 10 to 15 euro per book. That means like a new book, to try to save this book. And it's a procedure that has to prevent that the book deteriorates. So first of all, you have to freeze it, just in order to kill all the batteries that can enter the book. Then the book is like, there's another procedure, and then at the end of the day is ironed, like it was clothes. And so you can save the book with a very, very expensive procedure, and a lot of the public library in Venice did it. You can save the book, but the book contains still all the
Stains.
The stains, okay? And also it's 10% bigger. And so this obviously ruins any possibility of archiving or cataloging the books, because if you have like 10-meter book, it gets 11. But at the end of the day, it's the same book, and you have the book that has more life inside. And one bookseller in Venice told me, he's a seller of ancient books, so he has books of the 18th century, again, the 19th century, and he told me, this book has seen Napoleon, has seen a lot of wars, but the only problem they had was the flood of 2019. So that's the reason why at the end of the day I decided that the main character would have been a bookseller called Victoria. Victoria is like an iconic bookseller, the idea I have of a bookseller. Then once I've talked with a lot of booksellers are slightly different from Victoria, but I want to keep my idea of a romantic bookseller like Victoria. Sophia was the idea of something new that was starting in their heart. And Rosalba, I also love Rosalba a lot. So every book is a sort of autobiography somehow. So every character has a part of you, a part of the people you know. I'm not Rosalba at the end of the day, but Rosalba is a typical character that in Venice you can meet, and I think it was very important for me also from, we can say, a political point of view, because you live really in a city which is full of history, where we had a very impacting morning in going through Belfast. And so there are some moments in history that you have to do very, very tough choices. But at the end of the day, every life brings tough choices. And paradoxically, in Venice, which seems a very rich city with some problems or whatever, but now if you have an apartment or if you have a shop, you can make a little difference, because if you decide to just think about money, you maybe can start having, I don't know, bed and breakfast or whatever, which is totally lawful and nothing bad. But if you want to save the city a little bit, you have to improve the possibility maybe for young couples to stay there. And also if you prefer to have, I don't know, a restaurant, which can pay you much more than a bookseller, but maybe for communities, much more important to have another bookseller than another restaurant. So Rosalba was to me the idea that also the Venetians has a strong duty to choose what to do for their city. And at the end of the day, okay, Rosalba to me is very funny and whatever, but I think also she represents this.
Well, thank you so much. And now we'll change topic, I think, a little bit, because another set of questions was again about Venice, but mainly about its future. And this is quite a sensitive topic. I think we've all been reading on like foreign press, not just about Venice land, I mean, and this threat like during the years, but also in the past couple of days about the new fee that people, tourists, have to pay whenever, well, to enter literally Venice. So students ask Giovanni, how will the future of Venice be? And will it be a museum or a city? And I would actually welcome you some comments about the current newly introduced fee for tourists.
I am very optimistic. Yeah, because at the end of the day, I think that the way you tell the story is the story itself. So from one side, Venice is facing a lot of huge problems because it's a small city, it's very fragile, and is facing, we can say, enormous problems. Like not all the city can has the problem now of over tourism. Like 50,000 people are still resident in Venice, and then you have 100,000 people coming per day. Not all the city has the problem of being flooded tomorrow morning by the increasing of the level of the seas. But I think that from another point of view, all the city face enormous problem, and they can react. And I think that the world has a strong attention on Venice, and also that nobody wants Venice to finish. So there is a Spanish writer, Javier Marias, who one day told me a very important story, and he told me, Venice is the only city we know how it will be in the future, because it will be the same. Which is not correct 100%, because Venice is changing, as I told you, but at the end of the day, it is a little bit real. And from another end, now UNESCO has a strong attention on Venice, but I remember I just want to be optimistic. So because of a lot of people in Italy are not optimistic, so I need to do that. And 15 years ago, maybe I was invited in a dinner by UNESCO. I was even younger at the time, and you were already in Belfast 15 years ago. I was still in Venice, and I was invited in this dinner, and it was like an international delegation from UNESCO with people from all over the world. And they started to talk with us about the situation of Venice, the future of Venice, which were the problem of Venice, blah, blah, blah. And so we started desperately yelling about the fact that tourism and lagoon and whatever, and pollution, so that Venice is facing a lot of problems. But it was very amazing to me that, I don't think you ever been to such kind of dinner, but they are like very formal, whatever. But this delegation is human beings, so they were a little bit tired, and so the food was good, the wine was good. So at the end of the day, nobody was working too much in this dinner. But they had to make a formal final statement, like a conclusion, answering to our we can say arguments. And so I remember that because I think he was from Canada, and he was a little bit drunk, but really sincere. So he started saying, okay, so thank you very much. So, we are a delegation from UNESCO that we are visiting several cities in the world. We went last month to Calcutta in India, and then we went to São Paulo in Brazil, and then we are here in Venice. So compared to Calcutta and São Paulo, you don't have any problem. And it was like, it's a stupid thing because Venice has a lot of problems. So I don't want to underestimate the problem in Venice, but I also want to have a different approach on that. Venice is an amazing city, the most beautiful place in the world. I think now that Venice needs to have much more people living there, which I don't think it's impossible. Probably the politics that should be made in order to allow that are not the first on the list of the politicians that are governing Venice, and probably Italy. But I think that Venice will be there. Probably Venice cannot be a museum at all, because Venice is also for, I don't want to bother you too much, but also for the way that Venice has been created, the type of houses Venice has. Venice will not probably be a museum. I don't think so. There's a risk. We have to be careful about that. We are really facing enormous problem with limited energies and limited possibilities. But I'm quite confident that Venice will be probably something different, because in the history, Venice has all time changed its role, its way, its approach. Venice was the city of merchants, and then was the city of the factories of Arsenale, where the most important ships in the world were made. Then Venice was the city also of art, of the painters. Then Venice became the city of entertainment in the 18th century, where it was a sort of Las Vegas at the end of the day, where everybody came to have a beautiful time to spend in the theaters or whatever. Then he became a huge industrial key point of Europe with Marghera. So we will see. The really, we can say, philosophical, we can say, point in this moment is that Venice has all time changed due to the fact that there was a crisis. Now there is a huge crisis, but at the end of the day, the city is very rich. So it's difficult because it's easy for you to change if something is, we can say, empty. So if you have to invent something more and something new. Now the big problem is that tourism is bringing a lot of money and a lot of opportunities, which are sometimes, sorry, crap. But at the end of the day, it's much more difficult to change your mind if you don't feel that. So that's the point of Rosalba. So you can get I don't know 4,000 euro per month having renting a house to tourists, or you can get, I don't know, 1,500 renting to young couples. You cannot leave the people to decide that. We need the regulation, we need laws, we need the taxes. A lot of people are discussing about that. I think that politics needs to change the thing and change the approach. But at the end of the day, it's your choice. If you have one, if you have one apartment and you can get, in any case, some money, it's anytime a gift. So you can decide what to do. So I think that people have to change their mind also in order to save the city. But I'm quite confident that it will happen.
And the new fee, Giovanni, the new situation, really, with
the new fee is ridiculous at the end of the day. But I don't want to come here to say what a lot of things that are ridiculous in Italy, but which is a great country at the end of the day, and I know very well also because we are here invited by the Italian council. It's something. So the idea is awful at the end of the day, because asking money to enter a city is something awful. Okay. The two so I'm not against trying to do something, but at the end of the day, everything that has been tried is quite again ridiculous. First of all, because there is no we can say no purpose on that. So if this should, I really think that Venice needs to have 20,000 more people to live there and start a different process. So invert the trend and start a different process. And the world is changing. People can work from everywhere. People can love to stay in a beautiful city instead of an awful neighborhoods of an enormous city. But the main fact is that so if the City Council of Venice wants to collect money to improve, again, young couples to live in Venice or whatever, this can even make some sense. But you really don't know where the money will go. At the end of the day, we just get yesterday, because we have a lot of exemptions for paying the fees. So if you declare to the website that a friend is coming, then you can skip to pay 5 euros. So at the end of the day, yesterday, almost nobody paid the fee. So yesterday they cashed 75,000 euro, which is ridiculous because it's less than the cost they have to support the system. So that's the reason why Italy has a huge public debt and everything. So I think it's something. It's the general approach on Venice which is wrong. I think so, and I care about that because I am Venetian. But at the end of the day, I really live very well in Venice. The general approach of Venice is to defend Venice. So everything is like passive. So I don't want people to enter. If you enter, you have to pay. The way to change Venice is to have an active approach. That means to say, not come and visit Venice, but come and live in Venice.
Very nice, lovely. Giovanni, we need to rush a little bit because I think I would love to open for discussion very soon, maybe just even a couple of questions. But of course, the next set of questions was they were all about the author, and I would limit them to the main question, which is writer and lawyer. Is there a mutual influence of these two jobs or roles or vocations you have in life?
What time is it? Because I don't have
It's 10 to 5.
10 to 5.
So
awful.
I know. We love listening to you.
Okay, very quickly. What are the books that several books, and what is your line? No, sorry. I think so. That's the answer to my question. I really love to be a lawyer. Call it in Italy lawyer. We don't have the difference between solicitor and barrister or whatever. I really to have two different lives. I really to be totally free in writing without any, you can say, necessity to make it my job. I think that the two, we can say, works or passions are very well connected, because at the end of the day, even being a lawyer is something that treats with words, with writing, and at the end of the day, it's something that treats with representing somebody else. So my idea is that being a writer and being a lawyer means that you use yourself somehow to make the voice of somebody else. So they are very close, I think. They are different techniques, different things, different ways, even different budget, but at the end of the day, and different business, but at the end of the day, they are very similar. Maybe can help me in understanding the possibility to react. But it's something, I don't know, I don't think that we are only our job. So I think that the most important thing is to be a citizen. So a citizen has to understand what happens in a community. I prefer to work both. Both give me emotion. So being a writer for me is the most precious thing, the most, you can say, deep thing of my life. And it's something that really make me happy, embarrassed, or emotional, or whatever. So being writing is something where you have to live, or you are very naked when you write. So at the end of the day, it's something that is much more precious and much more difficult. So it's probably my favorite thing. But I really love to be a lawyer because you immediately feel that you can be helpful to somebody else.
Yeah, that was it, mainly. Yeah.
So
that was it. Yeah, that was the main question. So for the last few minutes, I would love to talk about this, which is really my question for you. And this was our book club for Queen's open learning program. We do have Professor Tess McGuinness in the room tonight, who's the director of such a wonderful adult education program in Queen's. And so these are the participants. And how, as I said before, Giovanni, what we did really was to play in a most irreverent way with your book for 10 weeks, really. So that even resulted in some cheeky questions for you that I'm not going to ask, like, would you like to write a novel with us, for example? Or what do you think about our shocking, alternative endings to your novel? Because that was one of the activities. So what we did, we had fun mainly at a very, very high level of knowledge of Italian. We talked about superpowers of book because Vittorio, really was initiated to reading, to the act of reading and the joy of reading by his first girlfriend, I believe. And all of a sudden, he understood that by reading, life feels bigger and more engaging and more comprehensible as well. So I asked, okay, tell me other superpowers of book. This was one of the activities. Every single week, the last activity in class was about a fantasy, really, that we had. So the strip of paper, the band of paper that you usually get whenever the book is sold in bookshops to promote it. So every single week, there was un libro, a book, already written, but we added a gap for the students to compose a promotional sentence, which got every single week one word longer. So you can imagine in week 9 and 10, you know, we have to put something that makes sense together. Sometimes you describe Vittorio with, you know, some whole sentences. So, you know, Vittorio is happy to be a bookseller. So again, the activity, very difficult, was find one adjective to describe this in Italian. So playing with words, with vocabulary, with synonyms a lot. Fulfilled, for example. Beautiful description of Sophia. We just deconstructed it. We divided it into lines. We messed them up. We had to number them to rebuild, to reconstruct who Sophia was. Whenever Vittorio is informed that the rent is going up, and he thinks about some messages to write to the owner, Albise Jr., we read 3 possibilities, but then again, we had to come up with a 4th one, which could be very moderate, maybe very diplomatic, or a furious response to this fact. We had quizzes about l'acqua granda, not just alta, but granda in 1966 that Giovanni mentioned before. We had the most hated one. It was about conjugating verbs in the subjunctive as well, to talk in this case about immortality of books. So we just took, you know, the material and we did this. Whenever you talked about how to save the books, we know that putting them, because you tell us, putting them on the radiator doesn't work really. So Vittorio finds all the books soaked, and at some point, one by one, he takes a hairdryer and dries every single page. And I said, okay, so tell me the book for which you would do the same, which is really, you know, your most loved book. We didn't like Vittorio's dedications to Sophia very much. We thought we could do better, so we wrote. we wrote.
Better than Vittorio, sure.
Yeah. There were tiles, you know, to talk about the meeting with the priest. There were like fallen letters to talk about something else. Some bits got damaged, so we had to fill in the gaps. We had, again, letters to add, all the vowels to add. We had crosswords and without even definitions and so on. So for me, my question is, we kidnapped your book for 10 whole weeks. We held it hostage. And we played with it, we dismantled, we deconstructed it, reconstructed it. How do you feel, Giovanni, about that? I mean, amused or offended?
No, it's never happened to me. So I'm not sure that you invested your time in the most proper possible way, but if you have done it, I'm very happy with that. No, I think that books are like something. It's so you worked a lot also for language, and I think Federica has done a great job. She's really bring it to me, but also to the book. But at the end of the day, I think that the most marvelous thing about book is like living them live. So like you have to throw the books in the ocean, and then you will see what will pick up the book. It's strange because I think that there are a lot of things that can be even quicker than books in giving you emotion, like music or whatever. But books are special because the books does not exist if you don't read it. And this is the stupid things, but at the end of the day, everybody reads a different book because based on the fact that the books are made of words, the word does not exist itself. Love is something different for anybody, and at the end of the day, it's very strange what happened with the books. So I remember that probably my first book. So I was very moved by that. So the first possible presentation of the books or whatever. And I just remember one day that a young woman came to me after the end of the presentation of the book and told me, "Okay, I really loved your book, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to say to you that I was reading this book while my father was dying," which seems to me something strange and not so happy at the end of the day, but very powerful, because it seemed to me that my books could have had any possible argument, but for somebody else it enters in a life, in a specific moment, in a particular moment, and so contains something different. So my book, which was talking of something totally different than a father that was dying, at the end of the day, for her, for every time he will see in the library this book, she will probably think about her father. And this is not because it's a beautiful book or a bad book or an interesting book or not a book, but because it is a book. And this thing for me is amazing. So you can do whatever you want with my book. Please don't die with my book, but at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want.
That's lovely. Shall we go for a round of applause for Giovanni? Gives me permission for maybe one question from the audience, Patsy. So I know the temperature, like we're reproducing the Italian microclimate at the moment here. So, but I really welcome maybe a question.
Any questions? I have the mic here, so anybody would like.
I see Stefania there.
Where am I going? Oh, at the very back. Okay. Oh,
probably she was saying hello to somebody.
Ciao a tutti, è un piacere ascoltarvi e tra qualche settimana sarò a Venezia insieme ad alcuni miei vecchi studenti e andremo anche a Verona. Un consiglio, cosa non fare a Venezia, cosa non vedere a Venezia.
Okay, can I just translate, Giovanni, first, just in case? So Stefania, who is another Italian teacher, is going to be in Venice and Verona. Stefania, you said very soon. So the question is really about like a piece of advice about things not to do in Venice.
You don't have to follow anybody. So if you see a lot of people going in one direction, you just try to get lost in another direction. Also in Verona.
Very good. Another question, Patsy. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Anyone? James, Giacomo.
Thank you. May I give you the mic so that I can hear you? Thank you.
Can I ask you, when you finish a book, do you feel a sense of loss or a sense of emptiness?
Completely, yeah. Also happiness, because it's writing a book is so it's strange, because it's like it's a sort of pool, we can say. So something that you have to fill with water, and if it's empty, it's bad, because you are starting to have a book in your mind and you are not able to write. Then you start writing, and you are in the middle. You're like swimming. So, but you so it's strange. It's nothing that really starts and finishes, because like the single book starts and finishes, but so me, it's like you are full time thinking about the novel. So the novel is part of your life. I don't know if it's easy to explain. So once you finish, you have like a couple of weeks, or okay, I finish it, even if you have to reread it or whatever, and waiting for it to be published and whatever. But that immediately you start seeking for the next story. So you feel empty sometimes. It's complicated. Something that gives you're happy. You sometimes are very happy. Sometimes you are not so happy. Sometimes you think, okay, I've written something very awful, or something which is perfect. You don't think it's too much. So it's a strange emotion, but you feel the end because it's something that is finished. So you have to it's something that does not belong to you anymore somehow.
That's great. So I think we have some books to sell as well. So I would just and sign, yeah, sell and sign. So I would like to thank some people. I would love to thank the Limenhall Library for hosting this event. Grazie mille. Patsy and Melissa here tonight for us. Annie and Belinda, always active in the promotion of Italian initiatives. Thank you so much for your support towards, our culture and language, especially. And the Italian Institute of Culture director is Chiara Vanzato for funding this initiative. Queen's Open Learning Program Director, Professor Tess McGuinness, again, not just, for the support towards the language and the culture, but always for giving me personally the freedom of teaching what I felt, like teaching really what I believe in. The Honorary Consulate and, in this case, Giorgio Zarrelli, who helps me with the consular duties. I mean, you're amazing. Thank you so much. And Alicia Sartori, who's Giovanni's partner, for being here with us tonight. Do go and say ciao, to Alicia, who's a wonderful person, and we're spending some great time together. All the students of Italian here, Crescent Art Center, Queen's University, for giving me so much joy and really, I mean, it's quite moving for me to see so many people, but mainly to Giovanni for so many reasons. I mean, for coming here and dedicating, your time to all of us, and also for writing so many beautiful books. But we love that one. And thank you for your prose, so witty, so penetrating, yet so discreet. It's a beautiful prose, and the contents are amazing. But I would say thank you also very selfishly, very personally. Thank you, because being here in Belfast, talking about Venice, you made me feel at home twice today. Thank you so much. Giovanni Montanaro.